Welcome to the Clear Impact Podcast, brought to you by PGTI University. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Sherry Connor, and I am your host.
Somebody ordered an outswing instead of an inswing, and their gutters were just low enough where it prevented them to open the door more than halfway.
Oh, no.
And it was one of those, oops, I forgot.
As we wrap up our Windows and Doors 101 series, Patrick Jameson and I talk today about common concerns. We talk about condensation, distortion, and why inswing doors may or may not be better for you. You'll feel like an expert after you listen to today's Clear Impact Podcast. Okay, so we are back on the Clear Impact Podcast today with Patrick Jameson.
Thanks, Sherry. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Patrick is one of our trainers, and this guy walks around with such knowledge stuck in between his ears, and we want to get some of that out onto the airwaves today. We're going to be talking about some common concerns that a homeowner may have around their doors and windows, and one of the things that is a common thing is condensation. Is condensation normal?
It is. I mean, it's something that folks experience when they have new windows put in their home.
Okay.
Because it's, well, my old windows never did this. How come my new windows are doing this? My windows must be hooked up to some kind of water line because now they're leaking. It's like, what do you mean they're leaking? Well, there's water all over the frames, and I don't understand why it's doing it when my windows from 25 years now have never done it, but now these new windows are. And there's a phrase out there, a leaky home is a healthy home, because it's drafty, it breathes, and it's allowing that, that air to flow back and forth. With new windows, you have just now sealed the building. You have sealed up the walls with windows and doors. There's nowhere for draft to come in, and now you have that cooler air meeting with moisture, and now you have the windows sweating or condensating.
You wake up in the morning, you go out, you're going to have your coffee, and you go to open your slider, and it's damp on the inside? Is that what?
Well, it's more than damp. It's actually like dripping down the glass. If it's aluminum frame, more commonly on the aluminum, you start seeing it just dripping straight down. I've had pictures come in before showing like the drapes and curtains that were very wet, almost to a saturated point, and there's ways to control it, but when somebody experiences that the first time, it's like a big red flag, and they need to call PGT or the dealer up and ask them, hey, what the heck did you do to my house? Now I've got leaky windows when it's really not leaking.
So they don't need to call us when that happens.
They don't need to call us. We have a brochure that you can type in Google PGT condensation, and you can actually download this PDF that talks all about the condensation.
Do you know off the top of your head what are some things people can do to help with that?
So some of the things is cracking or opening your windows, trying to allow that air from outside inside, trying to eliminate some of that moisture that's built up inside of your house by getting dehumidifiers, running fans. So there's a few different things that you can do. Or if you're thinking about new windows and doors and you really want to, try to stay away from windows that condensate, well, aluminum's going to show more condensation than vinyl. Vinyl will still condensate, but not as much as aluminum in PGT world.
Got it. Okay. Another common issue that seems to come up is distortion in the glass. And I know that, if you're in a fun house and you're looking at a mirror or you're looking at, some of those kind of trickster things, distortion can be really fun. Filters on, your Snapchat and whatever, but distortion is really not a fun thing when you just spent thousands and thousands of dollars on new products for your house. So let's talk about distortion for a bit. Tell us how that happens and what's normal.
You're absolutely right. So distortion does have its place in a circus, in a fun house, things like that. But with glass has natural characteristics that we can control to a certain point. Let's talk about just single pane raw or anneal glass. That is your perfect flat glass that has been cut and nothing's been done to it. When you start to strengthen the glass by either treating it to make it heat strengthened glass or tempered, you're going to add heat to it. You're going to kind of manipulate those molecules inside of the glass, and you're going to create a little bit of distortion. We follow a glass criteria from ASTM to ensure that the tolerance for distortion is acceptable. You're never going to be able to have like a perfect undistorted glass unit as you keep heat treating it, as you keep manipulating that glass.
Be sure to tune in for upcoming episodes to help you understand the fenestration industry, what you need to know when buying windows and doors, and other related topics. You can find out more about us at pgtiuniversity.com. You can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. So a manipulation of the glass could include having it laminated, which is what our impact-resistant products are, and then also insulated.
Yes, and then the best of both worlds, impact insulated.
Right.
And you're going to see distortion. It is nearly impossible. I'm going to say nearly impossible to prevent any distortion from that kind of glass makeup.
So when you say distortion, that means that things look a little warped when you're looking outside, or they look warped when you're looking from the outside at your house?
It could be both. If you're near some like tall buildings like downtown Sarasota, look at some of those buildings up there when you're at the stoplight and you'll see like almost like a little wave to the glass. That's distortion. Another good example is if you're at a traffic light and you've got some cars next to you at about a 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock angle, look at their windshield. There's a good chance you're going to see almost like a wave in their windshield. It's not nothing wrong with the windshield, but that's distortion. Every time you treat it, you're creating some distortion, but there is a tolerance. It can be controlled.
You threw out some letters, ASTM. Do you know what that stands for?
ASTM stands for American Society for Testing Materials. They're the ones that establish those standards, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And again, every time you treat the glass for just say tempered glass, it has a certain standard we have to meet. Laminate insulated has to meet a certain standard for that product.
Okay, so we always meet that standard, even if a homeowner may think there's an issue with their product. As long as it's meeting that standard, then they're acceptable.
Correct. And that's something we have to teach our customers, and the customers have to teach the homeowners, is how to properly look at the glass.
Okay, there's more than one way to look?
Oh, there's definitely many ways to look. So the way you properly look at glass is you have to stand right in front of it. You can't stand at a 45-degree angle and look at the glass. You can't bob your head up and down, which we call the distortion dance. You can't do any of that. Depending on the glass, if it's less than 25 square feet or greater than 25 square feet, there's a certain distance that you stand away. You look at the glass straight on for a certain amount of time. Again, depending on how big the glass is. And if you don't see this distortion, then it's acceptable. But if you do see distortion, then we need to take care of it.
Okay. Thank you for that amazing explanation of distortion. Basically where things get wavy and weird and doesn't look right and, oh no, there's a problem with my new windows and let's call the company. There is another thing that I would like to just chat about briefly, especially because there are so many people who come from up north who decide to take up residence in Florida, and who can blame them? Right? I'm from Iowa, you're from Ohio, so
Yes.
Here we are.
Loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. Even as we come into the blistering summer heat, we're still happy about it. So one of the things I know up north is that they often have inswing doors, and that is very different than what we manufacture, which is an outswing door. And so there are reasons for both of those. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So PGT, all of the French doors commonly are all outswing under the PGTI brands, but we do offer inswing as well. Me personally, I love outswing doors because in one of the past episodes, we talked about design pressure. We talked about that positive wind, trying to breach or break down the door. With an outswing door, you have the entire slab held up by the frame all the way around, preventing that slab from blowing in. On an inswing door, you have your pins, your hinges, your most likely 2-point, 3-point locks to prevent the doors from coming in, and they have been designed, tested, and certified that way. But me personally, I like the outswing doors. I love the feeling of the slab up against the frame.
So how come houses up north don't have outswing doors?
Because of this nasty, white, cold-looking stuff called snow. I love watching it during the football games down here in Florida, sitting with the AC on, but because of snow loads, you cannot open an outswing door if you have snow on the ground.
Right.
And that's why up north, you're going to have inswing doors.
Right, because you'd be stuck inside your house.
Now, there are some areas, and every jurisdiction can always, exceed different codes, and different areas like that have local amendments, but we offer both inswing and outswing doors, mainly outswing for our French doors, and you can put them at the front of your doors. You can add them as patio doors in the back. Some people are like, well, I'm changing it from an inswing to an outswing. Can I do that? Check with your local jurisdiction, as well as make sure there's nothing preventing you from opening that outswing door on the outside. It's happened before. Somebody ordered an outswing instead of an inswing, and their gutters were just low enough where it prevented them to open the door more than halfway. away.
Oh, no.
And it was one of those, oops, I forgot. And it's a big oops, but you are pretty much guaranteed never to make that mistake again.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so there's a lot of things to consider when you're placing an order and making changes to your home. And there's just a lot of good things to know about windows and doors.
Absolutely.
So do you have any great examples of what condensation is regarding the inside of your house?
A good example is when I was with field service, we went to a homeowner's house and they had their concerns / complaints about this window leaking. It was, condensation. The field service tech that I was with that was training me at the time asked the homeowner for a glass of ice water. So she got up and she went and got the ice water, brought it back, and we were kind of chit-chatting with her for a few moments. He looked down and pointed the glass of ice water and said about how the glass has failed. She's like, what do you mean it's failed? He said, look it, the glass is leaking. She's like, it's not leaking. That's, and then all of a sudden it dawned on her what he did. So he proved how the ice water was much colder inside than the outside the ice water in the air. Condensation formed. The drips of water were running down, form a little puddle on the table there. He says it's identically the same thing. He was telling about how you have the two different temperatures. You have that warm, moist air from one side with cooler, dry air. And that's where you start getting your condensation. So after that prime example, it made sense to her. So any of you, homeowners or sales reps out there that want to, relate condensation on a aluminum frame window, for example, get a glass of ice water and see what happens.
See what happens. That is a great example because we all know that's why we have Tervis and that's why we have coasters and that's why we have koozies and all those things. That makes total sense. Awesome. Well, Patrick, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and experience with us. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Anytime. I'm always looking forward. Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks, Patrick. PGTI University is the customer education team for an entire family of brands. We began with the original Easy Breeze porch enclosure line, then became PGT, America's leading brand of impact-resistant windows and doors. We then added CGI, CGIC, Windor, Western Windows, New South Windows, and Echo Windows and Doors. We create products built to withstand major storms, keeping people safe, secure, and prepared. Our exceptional brands give you the protection you need without compromising design or functionality. PGTI University is here to educate you, our listener, so that you can be a more informed consumer of window and door products.